Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. We're just going to jump right into meal prep and start making these chicken bowls that I made. Now, if you remember from my grocery haul, I said I was going to make some spicy buffalo or like instant pot buffalo chicken meal prep, but I realized I forgot to buy the buffalo sauce and I was not feeling that well to go back to the store to get it, so I had to come up with something else. I had some cabbage left over in my refrigerator and I had the chicken I planned to use for the buffalo chicken, so I came up with this meal prep. It's kind of similar as far as the spicy rub on it. It's similar to what I made last time, and I do have a recipe I will link down below where I found this on Pinterest. So first off, we are going to prep our chicken. So in a bowl here, I did add in 1 tablespoon of avocado oil. And then to that, we're going to add in the spices. We have 1 teaspoon of oregano, 1 tablespoon of paprika. I'm using the smoked paprika from Thrive Market, a 1/2 teaspoon of chili powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of cumin, and then some salt and pepper. And you can go ahead and let this, you just mix it all around really well so everything is nice and coated, and then you can let this marinate for at least 15 minutes. You can also do it overnight. Mine marinated probably for about 45 minutes or so before I cooked it up. Now, while my chicken is marinating, I'm going to go ahead and saute up the vegetables. So I have 1 whole zucchini here that I just chopped up into half moons, and I have a 1/2 tablespoon of butter in there. And so I'm just going to saute these up. I'm going to add in some salt, pepper, garlic. That's what I usually add to any of my vegetables when I am sauteing them up. So I'm just going to get them nice and just a little bit crisp, tender before I cook up the cabbage. I like my zucchini to be just a little bit crunchy, not cooked all the way down. So I'm going to go ahead and cook these up, and then we'll move on to the cabbage. So I removed the zucchini. Now I'm just adding in the cabbage. So this is already chopped up. I had it chopped up from last week. I didn't use it all in a recipe, so I had it all saved. So that's why this was good, because I was able just to pull something out of my refrigerator to come up with something. So I'm just sauteing this up in another 1/2 tablespoon of butter, and then I'm also going to add in some salt, pepper, and garlic, and also some red pepper flakes. I have some red pepper flakes from Fresh Jacks that I really like, so I'm going to go ahead and add those in and just get this nice and wilted, and then I will add it to the zucchini when that's all done. Now that my veggies are all cooked, I'm going to go ahead and cook my chicken. So like I said, it's been kind of marinating in those spices for about 45 minutes. I'm going to use my grill from Costco. This is that rock grill. It works really well. So I'm just going to cook the chicken on both sides till it is done, and then we will put our meal prep bowls together. Now I'm just going to evenly dish out the cabbage and zucchini mixture into my bowls here. So this makes 4 meal preps. That's what I usually try to make. I eat these throughout the week and also usually eat one on the weekend, and so that way they're in there. So I'm just dishing them all out, and then once I have used up all my vegetables, we'll add a piece of chicken on top. And now I'm just adding 1 piece of chicken on top of both these. I don't like to pre-slice my chicken in my meal preps because it tends to dry out. So this way I just leave them whole, and then when I heat them up, I just cut them up at that time. And next we're going to jump into this. This is a breakfast casserole, so I'll show you how I put this together. So the first thing we need to do is get our meats prepped. Now I already had some bacon in the refrigerator from earlier this week that I needed to use up. So I went ahead and just heated up that bacon and chopped it up. And then I also had some bacon bits left over. So now I just need to cook up my sausage. So I have about 3/4 of a pound of sausage here. This is just regular pork breakfast sausage, so I'm cooking that up. And then we need to get our milk and egg mixture all together. So in the egg and milk mixture, you need a total of 3/4 of a cup of milk. So and actually, just so you know, I am halving the recipe. I'm going to link down below. So I did not want a big, huge one. So I have 4 eggs, and then I'm just doing a mixture of half and half and heavy cream. That way it's just not so heavy with the half and half, but you can use whatever mixture you want. And I'm sure nut milk would probably work okay in this. I've just never used that before. So we're just going to add the milks to the 4 eggs, and then we're going to give it a good whisk. And then we're going to add in some spices. So I'm just doing some some garlic powder, some onion powder, some pepper, and some salt. Now, as far as your tortillas or flatbread, it's just going to depend on what kind you're using. If you are using just regular tortillas, then you're going to want to use for half the recipe. Like I'm saying, I'm doing half, so I'm just using an 8x11 casserole dish. You may need 4 or 5 tortillas cut in half, just depending on, like I said, whatever kind you're using. I'm using the cut to carb ones. So these are flatbreads. They're pretty big, and I cut them down to fit in the casserole dish. So I ended up using 3 of these and just cut like the bottom off, and you'll see here on the next screen here, you'll see how I cut it down. So you see I just cut down, just cut off a little piece there. So just depending on which tortillas or flatbreads you're using will depend on how many you need and all that. So the first thing we're going to do is add on that bacon. So like I said, I already had some cooked bacon. This is a great recipe to use up stuff, as you'll see. So I had this from earlier this week. A few days ago we had breakfast for dinner, so I had cooked up some bacon, so this was left over. And then I've been trying to use up these bacon pieces forever, so now this is a great way also to use these up. So there was only just a little bit left in the bag, so I'm going to put all those in there. Then we're going to add on 1/3 cup of shredded cheese. The original recipe calls for a mixture of mozzarella and then like shredded cheddar, but I don't have any mozzarella, so this is just a Colby Jack mixture. So you want to add 1/3 cup of that on top. And then you are going to put another flatbread on top of that. And I just had pre-measured out all my cheese, that way I didn't have to keep measuring out 1/3 cup. And then next up we're going to add on our cooked and crumbled sausage. So just go ahead and add that all over the top evenly. And then we're going to add on another 1/3 cup of cheese on top of that. Again, just kind of sprinkle it all around till it's all even. And then we are going to put our last layer of flatbread or tortillas on top of that. Now this is some diced ham I had left over from a recipe I made last week, actually, those egg scrambles. And so this is just some diced ham. I measured out a cup of this diced ham, so I'm just sprinkling that all over the top of the last layer. And then, yes, we're putting our last 1/3 cup of shredded cheese on top of that. One thing I forgot to put in the egg mixture was some taco sauce. I'm going to go ahead and add in just a little bit of taco sauce in there. That was called for in the recipe, and I think that would be really good. So I just kind of mixed that in there. And then we're just going to pour this mixture all on top. Like I said, the original recipe called for like 8 eggs and 1.5 cups of milk, but that was in a 9x13. So this is an 8x11. So again, if you want to make a bigger one, if you have a bigger family, then I would do the 9x13. But this turned out perfectly, so I'll just pour that all on top, and I just want to kind of mush it down in there to make sure that it gets through to all the layers and down the side. And now we're going to add some foil. This is going to go into a 350-degree oven for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, you'll remove the foil and then put it back in for another 20 until your cheese is melted and everything is all cooked through. And I did cut this into 8 pieces, so just depending on how many pieces you need, if you want a little bit larger pieces, but you'll see here this is about the size that 8 pieces cuts into, which was perfect. It turned out really, really well, so I highly recommend this recipe. The recipe will be linked down below. If you guys watched my grocery haul, I was telling you I was going to make some chicken crust pizza because the ones I've been finding in the stores are super small, expensive, and higher carb than I think they should be. So this is the recipe that I found. I'm going to put a pound of ground chicken in my pot here. Actually in my bowl, not my pot. And then we're going to add in 2 eggs to that, and 1/2 cup of cheese. It did call for mozzarella, but as I said earlier, I didn't have any mozzarella, so I just used the shredded Colby Jack that I had on hand. And then we're also going to add in 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, a teaspoon of chives, and then we're going to do some salt and pepper. And then lastly, we're going to add in 2 tablespoons of coconut flour. And once you have all your ingredients in there, you want to go ahead and just mix it all together. As usual, it's a little bit easier with your hands, but if you want to use anything else, then go right ahead. I just find it easier to mix with your hands. So you want to make sure you get that all mixed up, especially the coconut flour. And like I always say, with anything I cook with coconut flour, I always let the mixture sit for about 5 or 10 minutes before I do anything with it. Just kind of give it time for that coconut flour to absorb all the moisture, and it kind of expands a little bit and just works out a lot better. You want to make sure you line your pan with some parchment paper so it doesn't stick. So I'm going to line that on there, and then I'll go ahead and put the chicken mixture on top after it's been sitting. And I'm just going to, and this is I believe like a 9 by 13 pan, and I'm just going to press it out as evenly as possible. And once you get it all mixed, pressed out, you're going to put this in a 350-degree oven for 20 minutes if you're going to use it right away. So you cook it for 20 minutes, and then you can add your toppings on top, and then you want to put it in there for another 20 minutes with the toppings. If you plan on freezing it or not using it right away like I do, then I would go ahead and cook it for the full 20 minutes. That way you know it's done, and then go ahead and cut it up and either put it in the freezer or put it in the fridge and until you use it. And this is what it looks like after the full 40 minutes. And I think this is going to turn out really well. And it is definitely a lot less carbs than those in the store. I really like white chocolate mochas from Starbucks. So I'm going to make my own white chocolate sauce. And I'm going to be using some white chocolate chips, sugar-free, of course. So in my little pot here, I'm adding in a whole bag of these Bake Believe white chocolate chips. The recipe I found said to use 1.5 cups, which actually ended up being this entire bag right here. So I have that in there. And then you want to add in a 1/2 cup of milk of your choice. I'm using some cashew milk, and it's the unsweetened creamy cashew milk. It's really creamy. I wanted to use it up, but you can use any kind of milk that you want, I would assume, in the recipe. And then you want to put in 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla, and then you're just going to cook this down until everything is melted, and you're going to have a nice little sauce. And I'll just pour this into a mason jar and just store it in my refrigerator. I will put a recipe down in the description box with how to use this in your coffee, or you can stay tuned for one of my videos this next week and I'll show you how I do it. And as usual, I'm going to cook up some hard-boiled eggs like I always do. I use the 5-5-5 method, so it's 5 minutes on the steam setting on your pressure cooker, and then you let it sit for 5 minutes, and then for natural release, and then you go ahead and put it in some ice with a little bit of water for another 5 minutes. So for me, these come out perfect. They peel really easily, and they just are perfectly done. And then also, as always, I'm going to cook up a pan of bacon. So I just take a pan, I add on some foil, mix it for easy cleanup, and I just lay my bacon out, which this was the weirdest bacon that I've ever seen. This was the same center cut bacon that I buy all the time, but it was the weirdest shapes for some reason. Anyway, I put this in the oven at 400 degrees and I cook it for about 12 minutes and it comes out perfect. I just like to have bacon on hand for easy breakfast, make some wraps or some salads. So that is everything I prepped today. So thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to watch my video. All of recipes will be linked down below in the description box, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.